Cortex has 3 key parts for a simple creative workflow: documents, chats, and sources. Documents are where you write project outlines, articles, book chapters, batches of social posts, study notes, or anything else you would write in your typical word processor or note-taking app. Now chats have 2 functions, and the first is to text yourself ideas. Because most people jot down ideas in this long running note that they eventually forget about, or just can't find their ideas. So you can type @ or plus inside of a chat to connect your ideas to a specific document. If you're writing a book, you can capture ideas specific to each chapter so they don't get lost, and open those ideas as you write. And the same holds true for something like taking a note. You can create a document for the note you want to take, leave it blank, and then go into a chat and just text the ideas as you're researching that thing or taking notes. And then with Kai or Cortex AI, you can just ask it to summarize that entire chat, and then you can put it in the document so you have the fleshed out notes. And that streamlines your creative process and leads into the second function of chats, which is Cortex AI. Kai is your creative sparring partner. When you press tab, Kai is now enabled and will respond to you. It takes the entire chat into context to give you accurate answers. And when you type @ or plus, you can now ask questions to the documents or sources in your workspace. Now, one cool thing here is that you can paste the link to a YouTube video and it will automatically be added as a source. From there, you can ask it questions to extract knowledge from the video. How powerful this is really up to your imagination. If you want to take a document where you have how to write a newsletter and pair that with a YouTube video or 2 YouTube videos or another source that you pulled in highlights from your Kindle, and merge those all together into the newsletter or for research, there's so much you can do with this. As you're taking notes, writing content, or generating ideas, enable Kai and ask it questions rather than opening another tab to search Google. Kai can help with almost any questions you have. Now, after chats comes sources. First, you can connect with Readwise to import all of your highlights from Kindle or any other place on the web. You can drag in PDFs to read, highlight, and reference as you write. While you're writing, you can backlink to other documents or sources by typing @. And this creates interconnected writing. It organizes your notes and makes connected ideas that you wouldn't normally find in a hierarchical folder-based structure findable, so you can open and reference those fast in the pane system in Cortex. So you have everything in view at once as you're writing, note-taking, or just researching. Now let's run through a quick example so we can tie everything together. So let's imagine we're writing a newsletter or a book chapter or an article. So there's 2 steps here, usually, which is to create an outline and write the draft. To create an outline, you would just create a new document, and then this is where elements come into play. So elements are little organizational blocks that you can name. So let's keep this simple. Let's create a topic ideas element, a research element, and an outline element. And here's an example of another template for social posts. I created batch elements and post elements to keep things organized. You can also do this for your note-taking, or if you're planning your day and want to structure your goals and tasks. And now when it's time to write, I can create a new document as a plain draft and open my outline in a new pane so they are side by side. And as another quick tip, I can also open elements independently in a pane if I don't want to scroll a lot. And now I can open up chats and I can talk to Kai as a creative sparring partner to both fill out my outline and guide me as I write my draft. So that is the very, very general workflow. Outline with elements, use documents for writing, use chats to capture ideas and use Kai as a creative sparring partner, and use sources to store external knowledge. And you synthesize all of those with Connections, Kai, and just the workspace of Cortex. And the best thing here is that all base features are free for Cortex when you sign up. It's free for personal use. We only bill based off of AI usage and storage usage. And when you sign up, we'll send you a prompt library and a planning template and a social media post template and everything you need to know to get started, even more than you learned in this video. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoy Cortex. After a lot of hard work, Cortex AI V1 is here, and you can now chat with your documents, sources, highlights, and now YouTube videos inside your workspace. Now, if you are a previous Cortex user, you know that the chats used to be captures. So as an example, if we go into here, you can still capture ideas and to a specific document. Like if I'm writing a newsletter on how to learn 10x faster, I can put that here, or I can press plus to connect it with it not being inline, and then I can write to that specific document and filter it accordingly. So if I go and I type something like start with what you know, That's great. But then if I toggle Kai, what I can do here, so I'm taking notes for a newsletter. I have these all in one place, like texting myself. Then I can just ask, summarize what's in this chat, and it'll tell me, okay, we have the newsletter topic, we have talking points so far. Do I want to build on top of that? And I'll show you a cool way that we're going to do that soon with writing a newsletter. Now, the main thing we built first inside of Cortex is just the ability to handle large amounts of information. So large documents, long YouTube videos, like 3-hour podcasts and more. So you can tie things together in a very unique way that you can't really do inside of other software, especially when having all of your document sources, everything else in one place, right? That's what a lot of AI is missing, is you. And now even better with the desktop app, you can have, you guys, we had a lot of praise over the floating capture and floating documents, but if I push Option or Alt C, I can pop open a floating chats pane. So I can talk with AI from anywhere and use it as a study tool or a research tool. So if I'm writing something or just want to research this video, the end of programming as we know it, or we can find something more specific like Naval and go here, Naval, go to his videos, find the Deutsch files 3, copy that, share, copy. And then if we go to the floating chats, I can just pop this in here now like this. And you can see it automatically starts to add the source. And if I press enter, it creates a new chat, adds the source here. And it says, how can I help you with this source? Oh, I accidentally toggled off Kai. So summarize this video in 5 key points. And it breaks everything down that's inside of the video in 5 key points. But now I can also open floating documents. And if I have something like a prompt library from things that I've studied over time, I can use things like generate content ideas, headline ideas. A link to this is in the description if you want a place to start. I would recommend trying the Discipline Coach with Jocko, and then you can feed it your goals or your planning that you do in Cortex to get more clarity on what to do. Now, another thing with this, why this is so important for Cortex, is that our entire vision has been based around being able to capture anything from anywhere. So now with YouTube videos, what's going to come next is tweets. Actually, pretty soon we have it built out, and PDFs. You can already have a PDF in your library, but being able to just pull one in and immediately reference it, and being anywhere on your computer and pressing a keyboard shortcut to capture that source so that you have it ready to access and open and have transcriptions for everything that you can view all while you're writing or note taking or doing whatever. So here's a few ways that you can get started with Kai, just so you can go into Cortex and have something to do. And really pay attention when we get more complex with this and we weave multiple long documents together to create something that is kind of difficult to create in other apps. So we'll close out of these, Option D, Option C, Option K to open full Cortex. And now we're going to go back and we're just going to potentially create a new chat here. Now, one prompt that I love is the strategic advisor prompt that I found from Apollinator on Twitter. So if you ever find prompts, just save them to a document in Cortex and then you can easily copy and paste them. Or if I wanted to, I could technically reference this document plus prompt library, connect to it, and then just be like, use the strategic advisor prompt to guide me through this. But we're going to copy the entire prompt and paste it in here. And in a nutshell, it says, you have an IQ of 180. You're brutally honest and direct. You built multiple billion-dollar companies. Your mission is to identify the critical gaps holding me back, so on and so forth. So it says, for each response, start with the hard truth I need to hear, follow with specific actionable steps, and so on. So it's ready. Let's cut to the BS. What do I need to do? I need to write my newsletter for this week. And if you've used the previous simple life reset that we've talked about, where you audit your day and you write out your vision and what you don't want out of life, and then you plan your life, and then you execute each week after week. If you just feed this, if I name this something different and I said, show me what my blind spots are from at simple life reset. And then if you fill that out, then it will give you clarity and guidance on how to improve. So that's one use case, is just using Kai as a way to actually hold you accountable for your goals, but that's just the surface. Another use case for AI in general, especially when you can open the floating chat with just Option C, is to just ask it things whenever you're stuck. If you're writing a newsletter, if you are writing notes, if you are using Photoshop and you don't know how to do something in Photoshop, just open up Kai, Option C, and type, okay, how do I make a selection in Photoshop? And it will give you options. And then you overcome the problem faster so that you can make progress faster. The same thing goes for writing. If I'm writing that newsletter on how to learn 10 times faster, and I don't know, I have an idea for the Zeigarnik effect, but I don't have enough information on it, I can just search up what is the Zeigarnik effect, and it gives me detailed breakdown that I can then use to overcome my writer's block. Or if I don't know how to start a newsletter, literally just type, how do I start a newsletter? And then you can start. Now, another use case, if we go back to the prompt library, is the study guide, which I'm a big fan of. So if you want to learn a new topic, a good way to learn it is to ask Kai to act as your skill tutor on a specific topic. And I'll pop this in here, and then I'll tell it I want to master storytelling. And what it'll do is it'll give me a breakdown of exactly what to learn, how fast. It will give me YouTube videos. It will give me phases in which to learn in. And I also included in here to give 3 to 5 complementary interests so you can even learn when you're bored of learning by pursuing your curiosity. So if you're a student or just someone who learns skills, then use this. Now, this is where things start to get interesting. I created a document, how to write tweets, and it is pretty much a prompt. It's a long prompt that explains exactly how I personally write tweets. So it has all of these little details. It has examples inside of it. So if you write a guide for yourself on how to do something, then I can go into a chat and I can say, okay, use at how to write tweets to write 15 tweets, and use, let's actually go with a source this time. So, and use at Flow, the book by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, for the tweet ideas. So as it does that, if we look at the library, we can see here that it is going to pull ideas from my highlights that have pulled in from Kindle and anywhere else that I highlight from. But for this book, I highlighted on Kindle and imported from Readwise, and you can see it just pops these in here. Now, take it a step further. So we combined 2 documents there, right? One that was a system prompt, and then one that was like, use these as ideas. And now if I go to my weekly posts template, and we talked about this in a previous video, go watch that video for this template, but it's just a template, right? Where you write posts. So if you need post ideas, you can ask Kai to give them to you from a specific thing. So if I write a newsletter each week, it's kind of hard to pull social media post ideas from that just as it's written. So I like to ask AI to give me tweets about it so that I can use those as starting points for ideas, because AI writing in general still isn't the best at doing it all for you, nor should you want it to do it all for you, but it is very good as a mental or creative sparring partner. Now, I also created a document called How to Write a Newsletter, and it has exactly how I personally write my newsletters, and those are very in-depth, so I have a lot of information here on how to structure the outline and everything. But if I just come in here, and you're good at writing prompts, that's the prerequisite, right? Is, okay, let's add plus how to write a newsletter, and just say I want to write a newsletter. And I have instructions on this prompt for it to guide me on what to do. So the first thing it asks is, okay, what's your target audience? So I say my target audience is 20-year-olds who feel lost, my past self. And then it says, okay, here's 10 pain points, 10 desires, and 10 topic ideas based on headlines that have previously done well for me. And then I say, okay, proceed with topic 7. And then it fills out the outline for me, and I can use that in my own newsletter template if I want to. Again, we have a video on that on the channel of how to write weekly newsletters. But if I go here, I have my guided newsletter template. I can brainstorm topic ideas with Kai. Whenever you're filling something out, you can have a template inside of here built out with elements, and then ask Kai and brainstorm with him to get that filled out. And then you can open all of these. If I open another, and let's just say this is a newsletter draft, and I'm writing here just to have a draft, then I can open my template or my outline right here as well and have all of my information here. I can resize these. I can open up specific sources if I need to get information from those, or I can just ask Kai. So now if we go back to the prompts that we had previously, there's headline ones in here, but there's content editing and feedback. So let's take this prompt, act as a detail-oriented copy editor for reference. And then I have one of my previous newsletters here that I wrote. And then if I just close out of this and this, get back to Kai, go here, paste this, and then my reference will be at newsletter, how to learn 10x faster than anyone. And then it'll provide me detailed information. This is already written, right? This is the draft. Now I can have it go through and just give me structured advice on how to improve it. So it's asking here, shall I proceed? Yes, proceed. And then it'll just go through and give me suggestions to improve it. Like, that's pretty cool. So again, I want you to think of Kai or AI in general. You can use whatever you want, but think of it as your creative sparring partner, right? A tool to help you sharpen your thinking, not outsource your thinking to it or replace your thinking. And it's really up to your imagination how powerful it gets with the documents or YouTube videos or sources or whatever it is that you use to enhance it. Now, as mentioned, this is Cortex AI V1. Right? This is, to us, kind of underwhelming. Even though it's very powerful, there's so much more that we need and want to do, like writing assistance. We want to be the cursor for writing. Cursor is a programming tool that kind of helps you write code. We want it to help you write and be able to edit specific lines and go for grammar, brevity, all of these different things like the Hemingway editor and Cursor combined. We also want to add in all models. We want to add in Claude. We want to add in Grok. We want to add in ChatGPT and all of these other things so we can keep up with the latest models and allow you to choose the model you want to use for the task you want to use it for. And as we redesign the library, we'll have the global capture. So being able to capture any link from anywhere on your computer, pull in the transcript, have it all in one place, and auto connections and tags. So you pay even less attention to organization so you can focus on what matters, which is the creativity. And a last one is the neural search. So as you're writing, it will surface and search for relevant ideas that you can use to pull into your writing that you have in your notes, sources, etc. So try out Kai, see if you can do some cool things with it. If you do cool things with it, then share it with us in the Discord. You can find the link to that in the description or go to discord.gg/cortex. Tell us about it. Let us know how you like it. And Kai will only get better, especially if you share with us what works for you so that we can implement that into the app and potentially give you credit. We want to find a way to do that if we do incorporate users' AI prompts. So that is it for this video. Thank you for watching. There's going to be many more tutorials coming, so subscribe to the channel and watch the previous ones on post writing and newsletter writing. Thank you again for using Cortex. Bye. Really quickly, before we dive into the meat of things, I just want to show you how to start to think about the organization of your second brain or knowledge management inside of Cortex, because it's at least important to have some kind of big picture structure that you are working with so you don't end up having a huge amount of notes over in the side and it getting extremely confusing for you. So the first thing that I want to go over is just core notes in general and the template that you are going to use, which will be available to you in a few videos from now. So the next video, we're going to go over how to best capture ideas that you can start taking notes on and the reasoning behind that. And then after that, we're going to talk about how to or the importance of each part of a core note, right? So a core note in our sense is a way of actually making use of your notes, which you'll find out in a bit. But a lot of people just take notes just to take notes, to feel good about the second brain that they're building. At Cortex, we want to take it a different direction where we want your notes to actually be useful for you. We want the entire process from consumption to creation to be taken into account, where a lot of people just consume and they don't create, or they create but they're not doing it in an optimal way because their notes don't allow them to. So one connection that I want you to make in your head is that every single thing that you write is just ideas used as Legos. You can think of ideas or core notes as your Legos for the rest of your writing, which we'll find out the importance of. But every single one of the newsletters I write, or the YouTube videos I write, or the books that I write are all composed of previous ideas or notes that I've captured into Capture and then turned into notes and then turned into actual writing. So the process, in a sense, is first capturing an idea or highlighting an idea, so you have an idea, and then plugging it into a notes template, fleshing that out really quick. And then the more you do this and the more your second brain grows, the more powerful it becomes, because you have all of these unique connections and ways of weaving ideas together into unique writing that other people can't replicate. Okay? So to go over really quickly just what the template is a group of elements where anytime you have a note that you want to take or an idea that you want to flesh out and make your own, right? If you see an idea and you're like, I really wish I wrote that, that's what you take and you plug into the core notes template. So you put your idea here, so you can either just have a random idea or you can have a highlight from your elements or something from your capture, and then you illustrate the problem. So you list out problems related to that idea. Then you list out a goal, then examples, then benefits, then a process, then a concept. You don't need to keep every single element in here, right? I think the best way is to aim for at least 3 elements, so it's a cohesive note, add 2 tags, and at least 1 connection, which we'll go over. So this is the template that we're going to use, but what I want you to do right now is think of the categories that you're going to be taking notes on and eventually going to be writing about. The importance behind this is, let's say I have a creativity section with my notes inside of it. I have a writing section with my notes inside of it. Maybe I have a productivity section or a philosophy section or a psychology section, right? A main folder where all of my notes relating to that category are going to go. The importance behind this is it makes it easier to capture ideas for that thing. If I have an idea come to mind and I'm like, ooh, I want to take notes on that, I open up Capture and I connect it to the specific category that I'm going to connect it to. So if I have an idea that I want to save as creativity, then I'm either going to go into Capture or go into my phone, connect to the creativity document, and then write out something related to this. That way it's organized. The idea isn't just randomly put into a to-do app on my phone or Apple Notes or anything random. It's organized, and I can find the capture specifically by the category of notes that I want to reference, right? So that's the first step in organizing your second brain, is creating something like a notes and ideas folder by clicking the plus, then creating specific folders for each category you're going to take notes on or ideas that you consume. So something like creativity, writing, productivity, philosophy, psychology, etc. That's for the notes. That's what we're going to go over first in this course. The next thing is for writing. So depending on what you write, you want to have some kind of writing folder, right? If you are a writer, if you're writing newsletters or social media content or maybe a book, you want to be able to store those in a place that looks nice. So I have my writing, and then I have my templates here, and then I have writing for 2024, and I could even break these down further into specific dates. So if I wanted to do by month, then I could. And inside of here, I have my outline template, which we're going to go over. So this is what the writing outline looks like that we're going to talk about. And then I have my draft. So let's say I wrote my draft, and then I can have my outline open in the side. And then whenever I have an idea, I can connect to this outline in specific. Let's say I'm midway through the week and I have an idea for my newsletter. I can connect to this document and add it to it so it's saved there. And then let's say I have my outline open, and I can also use this, since I ideated a bunch of points, I can start writing social media posts for those things. So I have social posts, elements, and I can organize them all under one weekly template for my writing. So I have my newsletter, my YouTube video script, all written in my draft, and then I can take this and turn the ideas in there into social posts, and then I can paste these over to the platform or into a scheduler of my choice. So far in organizing your second brain, you have a notes and ideas section with your categories, you have a writing section with your templates, and then a year by which you're writing. It may be wise to separate something like books or professional projects from this. And then the next thing is just productivity. So we're going to go over a weekly planning template. This is how it's going to look. You'll fill this out, and then every day you're going to duplicate the tasks, and then you'll be able to just duplicate this weekly planning template every week, rename this by the date, and then you have your productivity in one place, you have your writing in one place, you have your notes in one place, and you can add to these and change these as you wish. So I just wanted to go over the big picture structure of the second brain that we're going to be building, and it may be wise to set this up at this time. In this video, I want to talk about the importance of a second brain and how to capture the best ideas for your second brain. So this software was built mainly for writers, creators, and marketers with them in mind, but note takers and just people building out creative projects in general can benefit massively from this system as well. And you'll understand why by the end of this in the next video. So the problem with writers, creators, and marketers is that first, they struggle to come up with novel ideas. So they tend to either copy others or they get lost and they just feel like they can't write. And then the second is that they struggle to say things their own way. So this is a common problem because when we read things or when we have an idea, the only way we can really think of that idea is in someone else's words. And the third thing is they struggle to distinguish themselves from everyone else. So whether you're a writer, creator, or marketer, I'm assuming you're trying to be unique. You're trying to be irreplaceable. You already write every single day. Everyone is a writer, or else you wouldn't be using Cortex, right? You write words. You use words to communicate with other people, and that's important. It's a major part of anything that you do in life. So for note takers, they often just don't have a purpose for their notes. They just hoard ideas and don't really do anything with it. We'll touch on that in a bit. But the reason for all of these problems is because these people don't have a connected database of original and curated ideas to reference when it's time to write, create, or market. In other words, you don't have original ideas stored somewhere for easy reference when it comes time to create stuff. Let's talk about why Cortex came to be and how it was a game changer and how one simple second brain tool really changed everything for me personally. So the person recording this, me, is Dan, right? I'm a co-founder along with Matt and Joey, and I started noticing a lot of my social media growth pick up when I first started using a second brain. So we'll go over the 3 reasons why this kind of changed my direction. Is that 1, social media growth. So when I started understanding this system and creating it, this is what helped me go from 7,000 to 300,000 on YouTube, 40,000 to 1.6 million on Instagram, and people quoting my ideas all over X. It helped me write a book. The Art of Focus would not be a thing without this system. Most of my newsletters would not be a system. Most of my newsletters would not be a thing without this system. All of my ideas and content are first fleshed out and written in a second brain, and I have access to them at any time. So a second brain for me was the system that helped. And when I say that, it's because I took a course, and the course was teaching Roam Research, and it was teaching me how to implement the Zettelkasten note-taking system inside there. And as I started making connections in that brain and building it out, I started to add my own pieces to the Zettelkasten system that made it much more impactful for the writing that I was creating with those ideas. And everything started to click, and I really felt like I could finally become like the person or the people that I wanted to become like Naval Ravikant and Jordan Peterson. Regardless of his political views, he is an extremely articulate speaker, and Alan Watts and others of that nature. I always wondered, how are these people so articulate with their ideas. And while this may not be the system that they use, this is the system that I use to at least feel like I'm matching their level and quality of ideas. So if you can spend 10 to 20 minutes a day capturing ideas, developing ideas, and connecting ideas, you will not have a problem with consistent and unique writing. Or I'll go even further to say you won't have a problem with big picture thinking, quality of ideas, and articulation. Going further, how do we actually capture an idea? Because you need an idea to write about, right? How are you going to fill up your second brain if you don't have ideas that fill it up? Ideas are the building blocks of all of this. Everyone can build a second brain. Everyone can write well. They just need to increase the quality of ideas that are coming into their mind, and they need a way to not only capture it, but develop that idea into something that others want to read. So the first step to understanding this is that everything is an idea. The thoughts in your head, the lesson in your life that you just went through, the content you consume. Creators view life as an endless stream of ideas. The books you read. I love Naval Ravikant. You'll see some quotes of his throughout this course. If you follow me on social media, you know I reference him a lot. One thing that he mentioned is that he treats social media as his note-taking platform. And I see that as a great thing. But when it comes to connecting those ideas and referencing them while you do these things, why not just write the social media posts in your second brain, and then you're growing this entire database that can be distributed to all platforms. And now to the right of that, something to practice here is to start to gain awareness of everything happening around you. I feel like people don't have ideas because they just aren't receptive to the experience that is going on in front of them. They scroll on their phones and let the 20, 50 ideas that clearly caught your attention and could catch other people's attention, you just let them pass you by. So the thing here is there a lesson you can pull out of everyday experiences? This isn't only a way to just capture ideas and get better at writing. It's a way to become more aware and present and look deeper into the situation of your life right now. The next thing is to write down your ideas fast. So use the capture feature as your digital whiteboard, notebook, and sticky note. You don't need any more sticky notes. You don't need to write on shower walls. You don't need to open random notes apps on your phone. You just need to open Capture on your phone and write down the idea in there so that it is connected to the rest of your ideas inside of there. Another way to have good ideas is to pay attention to the dopamine signaling in your brain. Good dopamine equals you should capture that idea. Now, the way you can notice this is through excitement, right? When you've ever read a book or you see a social media post and you're like, dang, I wish I wrote that, or I want to write about that, or I need to save that for later. Save that. The next step to coming up with good ideas, or just to capturing good ideas, is to not consume, but to research, to see yourself as a researcher. And since one, the quality of your life is dependent on your ideas, and for creative people, the quality of your work is dependent on good ideas, you need an endless supply of the good ideas to continue producing, right? It's like the gas tank of a car or the battery of an electric car. If the battery runs out, it's going to be difficult to move forward. So stop scrolling just for the sake of consuming content and entertaining yourself, and start logging on to research for an idea that you want to make your own. What a lot of beginner writers, creators, marketers, etc., even note takers don't understand is how critical research is as a cornerstone habit in your life. So some things you can do right now is to just follow people who are teaching what you want to write about on social media. Not only does this give you good ideas, but it starts to reprogram your mind to become those people. The next is just buy books to give you a broad overview of what you want to write about. So I personally like to read the first 2 to 3 chapters of a very big picture book, and I'll have ideas to write about for the next 6 months. I'm not kidding there. The next is to just subscribe to podcasts, YouTube channels, and blogs. The thing with this, and the thing with the creative lifestyle or the writer's life, is that idea generation is one, the most important aspect of writing, and it has to become a daily habit for you, or else your writing will suffer because of that. Now, last, just some practical aspects of things that you can capture, and this will make a lot more sense once we dig back into Cortex and start actually doing this. I just want you to know where you can look for ideas. So the first is just posts on social media that stick out to you. If you have the Readwise integration with Cortex, you can hook Readwise up to Twitter, and when you bookmark the post, it will be added to your Cortex. The next is just thoughts that are bothering you. So if you have a thought and it's negative and you're in pain because of it, write about that thought. Start to break it down. Treat your note-taking process as a journaling process instead. And now you have something that you can share with other people who are going through the same thing. After that is to just quote your favorite creator. So find a quote from them, take it, make it your own. Others are highlights from books you're reading. So again, if you have the Readwise integration, you can just save all of these to your Cortex, like your Kindle highlights. After that, headlines of blog posts, YouTube videos, and podcasts. This is something that we talk about in the Writers Bootcamp and Creator Central, the paid community, how to find high performing ideas on social media so that when you make them your own, you can almost ensure that they're also going to do very well and they're going to bring in followers and an audience and people who actually want to read your stuff. And then aside from that, of course, just anything else you want to remember. So if you want to remember everything, just make sure you capture it in some way. Now, you can copy and paste things, or you can have AI write things for you, which AI is coming to Cortex in a bit. But in my eyes, it's better to just write down the idea in your own words. If it's something that sticks out to you and you have thoughts about it, open up Capture and just start writing it. That is it for this video. I'll see you in the next one, and I hope you enjoyed this one and got something out of it. In this video, I'm going to talk about CoreNotes, which is a new note-taking system that we have created alongside Cortex. The problem with most note-taking systems is that they just don't have a purpose, right? I mean, remembering stuff is the purpose, and potentially being able to reference it is the purpose. But if that were the case, why is the overwhelm and the bloatedness and the confusion so widespread? And why aren't more people, especially creatives or knowledge workers, actually using the ideas that they bookmark or save or take notes on? Typically, you work on something for a month or 2 months and you take a bunch of notes and then it kind of just goes away. It disappears. I've been through that process multiple times. Or you take notes in school and they serve you well then, but then you either don't self-educate enough to the point where you need to take notes, or you're not taking notes for your work in a way that is conducive to better creations. So Jordan Peterson, Alan Watts, and any of the artists, thinkers, or public figures you admire, they all have one thing in common, at least in my eyes, is they have depth, clarity, and quality of ideas. That's why we made the CoreNotes note-taking system. Because while other systems just have you write down ideas and kind of save them for later use, we want you to make your ideas your own so that you can contribute to people taking notes about your ideas. So one thing that Naval said very recently, as of like a few days ago of me recording this, is that you want to be paid purely for the quality of your thoughts. And Alan Watts also had a quote, something along the lines of, sensible people get paid to do what they enjoy. So in terms of creative work or knowledge work or anything that we talk about here at Cortex, CoreNotes is a key part of that. And even if you don't take notes, the system itself and thought process, CoreNotes is a thought process, not necessarily a note-taking system. The thought process will help you become a clear, articulate, and quality thinker with depth. With CoreNotes, the key thing about it is that you are developing ideas after you capture them. So you just learned how to capture ideas and what ideas to capture. But what you do after it is not just letting it sit in a bank of notes. It's developing the ideas to make it your own. The thing here, when you capture an idea, you have to understand that people's purpose in life or goals in life are going to be relatively the same, but their path to get there will be different. And everyone can benefit from similar ideas, but the person who said it and the perspective they read it from. People don't follow information, they follow perspectives, right? They follow your perspective. When you're teaching or you're doing creative work or you're doing knowledge work, you may often question, okay, well, what makes my ideas unique if I'm just saying the same thing as everyone else? Well, one, it's your perspective, and two, it's how you develop the ideas and build on top of them to make them even better and unique to you, because everyone can have the same goals as of financial freedom and a healthy body and raising their consciousness and all those other things. But the path to get there is infinitely different, and by taking ideas and spinning them through your own lens and worldview is what makes them unique. But you need to learn how to do that, right? And what a worldview or a lens is composed of, and your psychology. That's what CoreNotes is based around. It's a psychological thought process, note-taking system. It's all broken down into that. Now, the thing with most writers, creators, marketers, they focus on short-term gains, virality and fame, and followers and trends. So they gain a lot of followers, but nobody actually cares about their ideas, right? You followed these people, you see these people all the time, but then there's the select few people who you're like, dang, how do they just consistently come up with great ideas? So on the right side of this screen, you can see 3 concepts. The first one is the one-person business. So who do you think of? I've talked about this a lot. I'm not the one who necessarily came up with it, but a lot of people attribute that to me and whoever is winning in that idea race. Now, 1% better every day. Who do you think of? James Clear. That's obvious, right? It's a great concept. It's a great idea. The 4-hour work week. Who do you think of? Tim Ferriss. It's a great idea, right? It works in a book. So coming up with these ideas, it's not dumb luck. It's replicable because you just need a system for developing those ideas. And that's why Cortex is here. By now, you should understand the base features of Cortex. You should understand at least what an element is. It's like a little note within a note. It's a little box, an organizational feature that you can add to a document. So for core note elements, these are different elements than what are in your workspace when you first get started. When you first start in Cortex, you have a few example elements and groups. You have like a productivity or a planning and a note-taking and a writing group, and each of those have different elements. Like the writing one has a hook element, a body, a conclusion, a social post, etc. For core note elements, you're going to be creating these new elements under a core note group so that you can create core notes with them, and we'll show you how to do this. But if you want to create these elements, then you type / in the document, and then you go to new elements or new element group, and then you create the core note group, and then you add these elements inside of it. So you can see it on the right hand side. It's big idea, problem, goal, example, benefit, process, concept. Any element within this can be used as an individual post, sections of a thread, building blocks of a newsletter, headlines, titles, and thumbnails, or guides for your thinking and impact. So when you take notes on ideas like we'll learn, you can use each of the elements that you create as a way to then turn those into individual posts, sections of a thread, building blocks of a newsletter, headlines, etc. I'll show you what I mean. Or you can use them as you're writing to guide your writing. So if you can't think of something to write next, then just go to the core note elements and pick something like problem, and boom, you have a new angle to start writing from. Now, there is a deep purpose behind the choice of these elements, or behind the tenets of the system inside core notes. So in something like Zettelkasten, you have things like fleeting notes and permanent notes and other things like that that help you flesh out whatever it is you're taking notes on, like the literature notes. In this, you're taking an idea and then you're expanding on it in your own words with problem, goal, benefit, example, etc., as your guides to take the notes. So the purpose of these is that if you have studied content or psychology or marketing or sales or any of that at all, you can already see what's going on here. You can see the first two, problem and goal, and you understand, okay, creative work or business or just self-improvement or anything is about transformation. It's about becoming aware of a problem and reaching toward a desired outcome or a goal. So you can see how these are built around attention grabbing and persuasive writing. So for the problem is that humans have a negativity bias, and you can use the problem element to catch attention, relate with readers, and help readers understand why they're pursuing a goal. The thing here is that almost every single, if you go and look at writing frameworks, you'll find something like PAS, which is problem, amplify, solution. If you want to capture attention, if you want to make the reader know that your writing is for them, you have to nail the problem, right? The next one, goal, to the right, is that just all good writing starts with a goal that you are leading your readers toward. Because the thing is if you don't have a goal, then what are you leading people towards in your writing, right? All of your writing is framed under a goal. The next thing is the benefit. So you can have a goal, but why should people care about achieving it? So you use the benefit and you flesh that out and use it in your writing to make it more enticing so that they want to continue reading to get the solution. Now, an examples in your writing helps readers understand your points by grounding them in reality. So you want to use the example element whenever you need to explain a specific concept. Now, moving forward, those were to capture attention and hold attention in your writing. So when you're taking notes with these elements and then you're using them in your writing as building blocks or ideas, you're capturing and holding attention. But now to make people remember your ideas, you can go even further and you can create a concept. So a concept is a way of thinking about an idea or group of ideas. So something like the synthesizer as a certain type of writer or creator. I've used this before. I like the word synthesizer more than writer or creator because you're synthesizing ideas into your own. The thing with concepts is similar to what we talked about earlier with the 1% better every day or the 1% business, is it helps package up your ideas in a way that people remember and attribute to you. Next up is the process element inside of our core note system. And a process is just a set of actionable steps that lead to a goal. So use the process element to make your writing valuable and give your readers clarity to act. And as a bonus, you can name your process. So the concept and the process go hand in hand here. And if you've ever read an article or a newsletter or watched a YouTube video or really anything, or even read a tweet, you understand that actionable steps, key points are crucial to delivering value most of the time, a lot of the time. Now, the next and last element in the core note system is big idea. So big ideas capture attention and inspire others. These are usually the ideas you capture and make your own. So when you think of a big idea, you think of the idea that you capture, and then you flesh out the idea, and then you take everything that you wrote and you turn it into your own big idea from all of that. Now, to make a connection and help you understand how powerful this is the YouTube video that brought me to 250,000 subscribers was titled The 1% Business, How to Productize Yourself, with Turn Yourself into a Business as the thumbnail text. So we're talking about taking notes here, but when it comes time to create a YouTube video or to write a newsletter or to write social media content, you're using everything that you've written in your notes and combining them and synthesizing them into something unique, because the 1% business started as a concept in my second brain. How to productize yourself went along with that as the process. And then the big idea, so turning yourself into the business, these were all elements in a note of mine in a second brain. And just by putting these out and sharing my ideas with the world, I was able to grow in subscriber count and make my creative work a success. Now, the last thing here is that simple notes are key, because I can promise you that this process we're going to go through can get very addictive if you actually do it every single day. It'll get very addictive. You'll want to keep going, and that's a good thing. Don't stop yourself, but at the same time, just take simple notes, right? We'll go over exactly how to, like, what to write in the notes and how focused to keep them and how many elements in each and how many tags and connections and etc. But the thing here, the point is to not take notes on every single thing that you read. First, by taking notes on every single thing that you read, or like say you're listening to an audiobook and you just are writing down every single word that they say, you're not thinking for yourself. You're narrowing your mind to the teachings of that person, and you're not allowing your mind to expand further and have any original thought. So what I want you to focus on is, one, just actionable insights and capturing those down, ideas that you will actually use, and enough context to just get the point across when you're actually capturing the ideas. So the thing here, and to end this video, is that your notes are the building blocks of your writing. Remember that. They're the building blocks of your writing. That's what Cortex is made for. You want to focus on having an abundance of ideas that you can string together with more time-consuming writing. Now, this process makes writing a lot less time-consuming. You pretty much write all of your writing inside of your notes, and then you just piece them together like Legos. But the thing here is that you just want to have the right ideas that when it comes time to write and string them together, it all flows very well. You don't want any noise in there. So that's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Continue on. We've got some exciting stuff to come still. Okay, now comes the fun stuff where we can actually start writing notes for your second brain to start building out the Legos or the building blocks of all of your writing, or really anything else that you create, because ideas are the foundation of a good life. in my opinion, because ideas create potential. And if your mind is the operating system for reality and you're able to have better ideas, then you're able to pursue more in your life and be aware of more in your life, because you can't build something unless you have the idea first. And you can't have the idea that's further out there, the more advanced, the more experienced idea, until you build and actualize the first one. So a bit of philosophy for you there at the start. But what we're going to do is, the first thing we're going to do is duplicate our Core Notes template. So whenever you have an idea that you want to make your own, you're going to duplicate the Core Notes template, and then you will organize it accordingly after you write it into one of your main categories. So we're going to right click, duplicate this, and I have a copy of the Core Notes template. And what we need now is an idea to write about. So the first step is to create a big idea. Now I'm going to delete all of this stuff, and let's delete capture an idea too. So we need to find an idea, and there's multiple ways you can find an idea. The first is just from your capture. So we filled some of these out in the earlier sections and in the product tour. There isn't really an idea here, but you probably have an idea that you would want to turn into an idea, right, of your own, or flesh out further. So we're not going to take one from here for now, but you can take one from capture. You can also take one from your library. So if you have a highlight that you want to turn into your own, or you just really like an idea from there, we'll actually do this after the first core note that we create. But you can search for a highlight and include it there. What we're going to do right now is go to a tweet that I previously wrote. So we're going to take this idea right here. This extension is called Twemex, Twemex. You can search that on Google and install it. And what it does is it allows you to see the top posts for any specific person's content on Twitter. The beautiful thing about this is that it shows you top performing content. Now, if you're a writer, or if you're realizing that, hey, I actually can become a writer with Cortex and Core Notes, the key to good content, or the key to content that actually leads to growth, is emulating ideas that already work, or that people already like, or that people already follow. So if you can find a high performing idea, whether just by scrolling the timeline or actually intentionally researching for it like this, then, and creating your own ideas from it with Core Notes and articulating it in a completely different way, you increase your chances of being unique on the internet and actually growing on the internet. So we're going to take this, we're going to copy the URL, we're going to go back to our Core Notes, and we're just going to paste this here. And then you can press tab to actually embed the tweet. We're not going to do anything else with this, but we can if we want. If you want to expand on this, be my guest. But for now, we're going to leave that, right? The next thing is I'm going to illustrate a problem. So we understand the necessity of talking about a problem or a pain point, right? If you're into marketing or just business in general, you understand the importance of illustrating a problem, because a problem is what allows the reader to know whether or not the writing is for them, right? Because people are reading things for value. They want a solution. They want this, they want it so it's like, hey, this person understands exactly what I'm going through, or, oh, they made me aware of a problem that I didn't even know I had. Now I want to solve it. I want to improve myself. So this is a very fulfilling line of work for writers, is to identify problems and write solutions for them. So for a topic like this, on the idea that we chose, which is normalize not having an idea, normalize not having an opinion on things you don't understand. A problem for this could be something along the lines of, most people act like they understand something so that they don't look stupid, right? And then we can work from there. So the thing with this, and elements in general, and Core Notes in general, is you'll make this connection soon, but the elements of big idea, problem, goal, example, benefit, they help you write through things when you don't know what to write. So if you're ever writing anything, it doesn't have to be a note. Think through the idea you're trying to write in terms of, okay, what's the big idea? Okay, what's the problem? What's the goal? What's the example? If you're in a random section of a book, or if you're in a random section of a newsletter or an article or a YouTube video script, think through these things, and you'll find your way out of writer's block. And you can even add the element if you're writing those things in Cortex, right? So problem, goal, example, benefit, process, concept. So from this, let's say I wrote the idea, normalize not having an opinion on things you don't understand. Now let's flesh out the problem. So I'm going to write this, and then we'll come back. Okay, so we just finished this up, and this is the problem. Most people act like they understand something so they don't look stupid. Even if they have surface level knowledge of the subject, they will judge and criticize others as if they know more than they do. So to build from this, we can just go through the rest of the elements. So here, I don't really want to use a goal. The thing with core notes is that you don't have to use any of these. In fact, you don't even have to use this template. You can just open a document and start writing, okay, I have an idea. Let's write out the problem. Let's write out the example. You just create core notes like you normally would. So example, and then you start writing. This template is just to help at the start and potentially be more convenient. So from here, I do have an example. So I'm going to write this out, and what you do in a nutshell is just think things through. So from the big idea, we got the problem. From the problem and the big idea, let's think of an example. Okay, so we're back with an example, which is you watch a podcast on a new fad diet. You feel like you're well educated on the subject. You think everyone who isn't low carb is dumb. You don't understand nutrition, but you feel like you do because you got some results, but you lack regard for other people's goals. They aren't the same as yours. So this illustrates an example of normalize not having an opinion on things you don't understand, is because a lot of people learn something new, and then Dunning-Kruger effect, they think, oh, okay, yeah, I know more than you on this. You're dumb for not knowing this. Low carb diet is the best. They don't have multi-perspectival understanding. They don't see the principles between all things. I digress. But we actually mentioned a concept there. So for the concept element, let's just add in Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if that's how you put it, but let's delete that. Let's turn this back to white, default. And the thing with this, so throughout this, remember that we want at least 3 elements. We want at least 2 tags and 1 connection. That way we can find this note when we're sifting through other notes or trying to find novel ideas. So here, let's go back and let's actually change knowledge to a tag. So knowledge, just because now we can search this when we click on it, and we have the one document. Now, another thing we can do here is we could tag nutrition here if we wanted to. We can tag it as a post idea if we want to reference it later. But what I'm going to do is throughout this entire time, especially if you don't have many core notes created yet, or you don't have many notes at all, or an entirely new idea comes to mind, you can create a new document that you can start taking core notes on, right? Or just save it for later. So let's just say I'm a note on nutrition, and we can create that document. It will add it as a nested document to this. I can open it as a connection, and it's sitting there. So let's just imagine that we created that. I'm actually going to delete this, but let's continue on. We'll come back and think of a connection that we can make. But next thing, benefit, I'm going to skip over this as well. We're going to go straight into a process. So what a process is a step-by-step solution to overcome the problem or to achieve a specific goal. So in this case, a process is, okay, what's the solution here? What am I giving that's valuable? And if you understand how to write newsletters or articles, you can understand where we're going with this, where any core note you create can be used as a newsletter outline or a YouTube video script or anything like that. Because all of those things usually start with a problem or pain point as the hook. They give examples, they potentially hint towards a goal, and then they give a process. I'm sure you've seen 8 steps to stop caring what people think. That was actually a recent YouTube video of mine. But the 8 steps part is the process, right? So if you're taking notes on a high-performing idea, not like normalize not having an opinion on things you don't understand, and then you have a problem related to that and a process to help people overcome it, you not only have a outline for a script or a bunch of ideas for different social media posts or whatever it may be, you can also include this tweet embed to add more authority to your writing, because in YouTube videos and newsletters and social media posts, like, you gain authority when you back up your arguments with other credible data, facts, arguments, and other things like that. So I'm going to write out the process here and then we'll come back to this. All right, so what I did here was I listed out a process to overcome the problem. The process is open your mind and realize you don't know everything, resist the urge to react with what you think you know, listen to others and collect kernels of truth, capture those ideas in your second brain, and I added a tag there to categorize anything by second brain, develop them using core note elements, and use your core note elements to teach from a new perspective. So you can also see how you can really tie the process into anything that you do. So if you are a freelancer, you have a service, or you have a product, or whatever it may be, you can like transition into those things with almost anything. So another thing that we can add here, where we skipped over the benefit element earlier, we can add that here, where the benefit of this process are things like you become less reactive, you learn more than everyone else, you become more articulate and knowledgeable, and you get better results in that topic. So now we could add on to this, but we'll leave it for now. You have a pretty dang fleshed out core note. Another thing is that sometimes these just get ugly. So let's delete that. Let's rename this to, let's just name it Learn Like a Student for later. And the only thing that we're missing is we have 2 tags, we have a few elements, everything is looking good. One thing that we can add is some kind of connection. So if I look at prior things that I have, creativity, how to find profitable ideas, ideas are the new oil. You can see, capture those ideas. So I talk about ideas briefly. So let's just plug in here, ideas are the new oil. It kind of sort of makes sense. You're not trying to add directly connected ideas, right? When you're writing about something and you're sifting through a lot of different notes, you want novel connections. You want something that's unique. You want something that hasn't been done before. And so if I'm using this note as a reference for a YouTube script or a newsletter, and I see, okay, ideas are the new oil is in here, and I already have this core note fleshed out, now I can start to work with this, right? I have an entire YouTube video that I can watch for specific ideas, and I can start to tie things together and really create something unique. So this is our core note for now. We have a connection, we have tags, we have everything. It's looking good. Now we need to organize this. So let's go over here. Learn like a student, that could go into creativity, but let's just create a new one because learning itself is a pretty big topic. So I'm gonna drag this under here, drag learn like a student under it, and now our core notes are coming together. So now let's create one more core note, and this time let's base it off of the idea of the last core note so we can create another connection. So learn like a student. Let's think about that. Let's open it in a pane, and let's find an idea that we can build off of. So become less reactive, open your mind, Dunning-Kruger. So one idea actually just came to mind is that I've had ideas before like this one that's high performing, and it kind of reminds me of learning like a student, right? And self-education and really getting into that. So nobody is coming to save you is a great option for a new idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Cortex. We're going to duplicate our core notes template. We're going to open this. We're going to connect a specific document. So we're going to take the big idea, and I'm just going to straight up add learn like a student here, right? And then from here, this is connected to this document. As you can see here, it's a connection, and it's also an incoming connection to the Learn Like a Student document. So if we have this one open, we can start to work with it to really get a big idea. But the idea we wanted to use is that nobody is coming to save you. And that's a typically high performing topic. Now this time around, I don't want to use the same elements, just to give you better examples. I don't care to use problem elements, example elements, process, or concept elements. I want to use just different elements. Now let's add one more thing to the big idea, because personal responsibility comes to mind, and that's more of an idea than a problem or other things. So let's write that down. So personal responsibility is the key to building a life that you love. So that's kind of related to a goal. So let's go to the goal and write something out. All right, so we came back with to become financially independent and do work that you love. I tagged it with business, to have thriving relationships and fulfilling free time, to be able to make decisions whenever you want, wherever you want. Now, from the goal usually stems a problem. So what's the problem that's preventing people from achieving the goal? So let's fill that out next. Okay, so the problem that we came up with is most people don't take responsibility for their lives, so they are doomed to the outcomes that others assign them. They never set their own goals. They go to school, get a job, and retire at the age they are told to, while barely scraping by with an underwhelming paycheck. If that hurts, I am sorry, but be authentic with your writing. Don't be afraid to be bold and talk about these things, as that's what sets you apart. Now we're just going to stick with this. So I'm going to delete all of these elements, and we have one tag. We could add another one, but I'm just going to let it be for now. And we're going to name this Nobody is Coming to Save You. And what we could do here for a connection is either connect something that we already have or create a new one. So this right here, not taking responsibility or not having their own goals, going to school, etc. It reminds me of something on like habit formation. So just to show you what we can do, if ideas keep coming, don't stop writing notes. They are going to come in so much handy later, and you can keep it short and sweet. So we're gonna go straight into this. We have habit formation. I'm gonna drag it over to the main pane, and we're just gonna get started straight away. So I'm gonna connect Nobody is coming to save you. I'm not going to use a template for this. We're going to dig straight into the problem. So the problem for habit formation is that habits determined who you are now. They will determine who you are in the future. Most people don't have the habits that will create their ideal lifestyle. So now let's go straight into just a process because it's coming to mind. We can dig into this by saying first step is set a new goal of your own. Or immerse yourself in self-education and learning. Before that, identify the habits, skills, and knowledge standing in the way. Immerse yourself in self-education and learning. Allow your mind to grow into a new identity. And we could name this process if we wanted to, but outside of that, let's just have a example. No. Let's actually create a concept with it where you are your habits, and just a simple description of you are your habits would be you aren't where you want to be because you didn't make the choices that would get you there, something like that. There's an idea there, and this could definitely be turned into a tweet. So I could just write post idea to save that for later. I could tag through these things. I already have a connection, and now we have a few core notes. So let's think of this. We have habit formation that goes under learning Nobody is coming to save you. That's more of like a self-improvement thing. So add another category, self-improvement. Add nobody's coming to save you under that. But now we have a few more categories. We have quite a few notes. And now what I want to show you is, and what we're going to go over in the next modules, is just writing. So we're going to go over a writing template. And once we go over it, let's imagine that we're doing this, right? So I have my writing outline, and I'm actually going to open this in a pane. So I'm going to open my draft. I'm going to open my outline in a pane. Or actually, no, sorry. Let's open this right here. So when I'm ideating my newsletters, I have this ideation section because all newsletters, YouTube videos, it has all of these things within it. So if I create a topic around this, now you see that I can just go through different ideas in my workspace and start to plug in problems or goals or examples that start to create this unique newsletter, right? So we can create something new off of this document, which we'll do in the next one. And you can start to see how all of this becomes interlinked and extremely valuable for your content creation or your products or just having better ideas. Okay, now this is where things start to get fun and interesting, because a second brain, in my opinion, is not just for storing notes or organizing your day or other things like that. That's obviously a very good part of it, but a lot of the times you don't need a second brain to do that. You really don't. It may help, but you don't really need it. And a lot of times it just causes a lot more bloat in your life. So the thing with this is we're first going to go over a writing template and just how to structure your writing as a writer in Cortex if you are a writer. And then we'll go over the minimalist writer's workflow that I use for people who don't want to take a bunch of notes like we just learned how to do, and instead just want to write. The writers that know what they want to write and just want to start writing. So the first thing is we're going to have this template, and right now I have it under my writing, but you're going to be able to either download and upload this template or just duplicate a link to it. But the main thing that you're going to do, and you're going to have to add the elements to your workspace, and honestly, it would be better if you just created this from scratch, but can't really do that. So the best thing, if you want, you can upload a Cortex file, and there will be one under this course. You can just download it and then upload the Cortex file and then organize it under a templates folder under your writing, or however you want to organize it. Now, there's a few things here that I'll also include for you, but we can download the long form writing template. So we have that here, and we can just follow the instructions. So first is fill out the elements for clarity, capture ideas to this document at any time, open a new document and connect it to this page, open this template in a pane and reference it as you write, open other documents or highlights as you need them. And if you'd like, you can use these to ideate short form posts, open a document and reference while you do it. We'll go over all of that. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create the metadata. So inside of an outline, I like to treat it as a meta doc. What I mean by that is when we write the draft, I don't like to clog that up too much with connections and tags and other things. I just want it to be clean writing. So I have this linked under here, and the reasoning behind that is because now it's organized and I can connect and capture anything to this document and still be able to find it relatively easily. So first, you should already know what topic you're going to write about, but since it's the second step, let's actually think about it. So from here, we have a bunch of ideas already. So nobody's coming to save you is one good idea for that. So let's write about that. That's a good topic. Nobody is coming to save you. Or we could write about habit formation. Actually, yeah, let's do that. Habit formation is the topic, and nobody is coming to save you is baked in there. But we already learned how to capture the best ideas, and those are what you're going to turn into your writing, right? Or whenever you have an idea or topic that you want to write about. So let's close the instructions. These are our topics. We're going to add the categories and keywords right here. So in the notes before, we had these as categories, but I don't really like organizing my writing in category folders. It just doesn't make sense. I like organizing them in terms of like date, like 2024 writing. So here in terms of categories, this is going to be mostly self-improvement. Some keywords that I can reference later would be personal responsibility. What else? Habits. Let's look inside here. Goals. We'll keep it at that for now, just so we can find this later. And if we find this template by searching for keywords or connections, we can almost certainly find the draft and be able to open that in a pane. So going through this, we can brain dump specific ideas relating to it. So any ideas that come to mind of what I want to write about, and then research. So what you can do is you can add quotes, highlights, tweets, or ideas. This is where I take a decent amount of time to go and look through my own Twitter account for things that I've written out beforehand. I also look at other people's posts. I've researched Google for stats, and I search through my library for specific ideas for this. The other thing you can do here is add connections. So for this, it would be like nobody's coming to save you. It would be the habit formation. It would be another one that we wrote. Let's add one on creativity. So how to find a profitable startup idea. And now the thing with this is how to find a profitable startup idea. You may think just has nothing to do with what we're talking about in terms of habit formation. But what's the purpose of habit formation? It's to set a new goal. And what's a good goal to set? A business, starting a profitable startup. And so this is how you start to weave ideas into each other and really create something unique. So you have this outline, and it's going to be filled with these connections and ideation and other things like that. And when you're writing it, you can open these up along the way. So I'll show you how to do that in a bit. But outside of that, the next step is just ideation. So inside of really anything you write, you may not know exactly what to write about. So the thing that I like to do is I like to flesh out core note elements for every single newsletter that I write so that I can flesh them out pretty easily. So here I can either list out the problem relating to what I already have, or I can just find problems that I've already talked about. Most people don't take responsibility for their lives. And then I can copy a link to this element and I can paste it inside of here. So I can have that there, or I can just write out the idea, and let's just start it with most people don't take responsibility for their lives, and then we can go from there. I can do the same thing with a goal, or I can go through to other connections and start finding like specific goals, or I can go through other connections and find a specific goal that I would want to target, but there isn't one in here. But the gist of it is you flesh this out before you start writing, and then once you finish all of this, you have everything you need to start writing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over one that I already wrote and fleshed out so you can see how I did it. So this is on a previous newsletter and YouTube video that I created called The Greatest Skill of the 21st Century. And you can see here, I have my categories, I have my tags, I have my topics. I brain dumped specific ideas that I wanted to write about. I added research, so I added a highlight from my library. I added a tweet of mine that I can reference. And then I added my writing philosophy, time under attention, ideas are the new oil, so I can open these at any time to reference them as I'm writing. Another thing that I have here is a swipe file connection, which we'll go over in a bit, which has all of my tweets organized by example elements. So if you create swipe files for your own content or other things, here's a way to do it and make it look nice. And then after the research, go into the ideation, and we have the problem, we have the goals, we have the examples, process, big idea, concept, etc. And then going further into the key points, we have just from everything that I listed up here, I start to write out the key points. So an intro usually contains the problem and amplifies the problem and has a hook. And then how to persuade, in terms of this article, is a solution to that, right? And I already have a document on the pyramid principle connected to attention holding techniques, so on and so forth, that I can go by. And then after all of this is when I craft a compelling hook, which I didn't do for this one. But then from there, what you're going to do is you're going to create a new draft page under this, under the template that you have. And so when you open this, it's going to be blank. But what you can do, so let's just say I created a new one and it's called draft and it's blank. Now, in order to start my writing, I open up my outline in a pane, and this document is kind of just where all of my ideas reside and all of my connections. So if I need any ideas related to the category or the keywords, I can click on these, I can search through specific ideas, I can open them in a pane. So speak in absolutes is actually fairly relevant advice for learning the skill of persuasion. And then going further, the reason I include checklists right here is because as I'm writing, I can check these off and keep things going. Next thing, I can look at my research, so I have things to reference as I'm writing my piece. And then even further, we have the key points, and this is the main thing that I use to go about getting my ideas. So as I'm writing, and if I run out of ideas, I go through here, I check these off, I open up my connections to read through them, I find more novel ideas to remove writer's block. And since you understand elements, you understand that they're just building blocks for ideas. So when you have key points like an intro and a body and an actionable process, then what you can start to do is you don't really need to think of what to write next, because all of the elements, the problem, process, example, goal, etc., those are all transitions for your writing. They're all attention grabbing. They all work as an introduction or a body or a conclusion. It's just about stringing them together and making them sound good. That's what writing is. So if you're struggling with what to write, think about problem, goal, etc. You can open certain things and use a big idea to continue on. You can use a benefit. That's just what writing is stringing those things together. And so I have all of those ideas right here with problem, goal, example, etc. I can go and search for more in my research and open these up as I'm writing, and then so on and so forth. It makes a lot of sense how that works. Now, the other cool thing about this outline is it's an ideation outline. It's not just a key points. It's not just a list of key points. It's other stuff. It's research. It's fleshing out the ideas. It's a brain dump, etc. So if I'm writing something like social media posts, what I personally do throughout the week is I write one newsletter a week and I write a bunch of social posts that week. So I have this outline open, and then I can create a social post element and just start looking through here for potential ideas to turn into social media posts. It's not a copy paste type deal. It's just a way to create ideas for those things. And then since I organize them by element, they're pretty easy to search and make look good, and I can highlight them. So if you're trying to fit the 270 character count of a tweet, you can make sure you do that here, so on and so forth. And this is how your core notes start to tie into your writing or other things of that nature. So to round things out, you can go straight into writing a blank draft like we were going to do here. But in my eyes, it's much better to create elements that allow you to outline that thing beforehand, so you can do it replicably and a lot more powerfully by creating this interconnected second brain that allows you to reference and synthesize ideas like you would as a writer. So that is it for the writing portion for now. We offer more in the Writers Bootcamp and Creator Central, but this is a second brain course, right? It would take a lot more. It would take a lot more education to teach the ins and outs of writing. Now, I feel like this actually helps people get off on a great start, and it educates writers on how to write in Cortex. So if you are a writer, I feel like you would get a lot out of this video. If you aren't a writer, you at least understand the process to an extent, but in terms of writing the actual draft, you may still be confused. But what I want you to realize is that it's just about organizing and stringing together the core notes that you did create and transitioning between the ideas. So I'll leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you're starting to see the power of Cortex. And actually, that was a lie, because I have one more thing relating to this, is when you're writing these things week by week, you're going to create the outline and you're going to start writing the draft, and then you're going to have ideas throughout the week. You're not going to write it all at once. I tend to write my newsletters and scripts for 30 to 60 minutes every morning for 5 days, right? So it takes me that long because I understand the power of capturing ideas. So what I can do is I can open Capture specific to this and capture ideas on the go. So that way, when I'm actually writing the draft or the social media posts relating to it, I can open up the outline, and then I can open up Capture relating to, not the draft, but relating to the greatest skill of the 21st century. And when I have my ideas in here, they will show up, and then I can just piece them in together there. So in a later video, we'll go over like how I actually do this for when I'm writing my book or when I'm taking notes or other things of that nature, and we'll round everything out. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching thus far. Hope you're getting a lot out of it. Catch you later. All right, in this video, really quick, I want to go over a minimalist writing workflow for writers who don't want to take a lot of notes, because I understand how time consuming taking core notes every day can be. Even though I believe it gets very addicting, I do believe it's a great 30-minute habit to become more intelligent and smart and an articulate thinker every single morning. It's just good to have that creative practice in the morning of creating notes and ideas that actually turn into something that you produce, like a newsletter or a YouTube video or something that will attract people to your work, like we teach in Creator Central, the paid community. Now, with the minimalist writing workflow, here's the way that I like to think about it. In a few videos ago, I mentioned that elements are like atomic notes. They're like notes within notes, or notes within documents, because you can link to them, you can search for them, you can do all of that fun stuff. So what we're doing in this minimalist writing workflow is we're completely getting rid of the idea of having an outline or something as complicated as this. Not that you need to have it so complicated. You can create your own outline that's just hook, body, conclusion, and you're good to go there, or however you like to write. But what we're going to do inside of this is we're just going to have one simple document, and we're going to write the actual letter or newsletter or article or YouTube script or whatever it is. Because when people have an idea in their head as a writer, typically they just like to go and write about it. And that, I understand that. That's perfectly fine. So what you're going to do is you're going to create the document for whatever draft you want to write, and then you're going to write it, and don't, like, without these elements first, right? You're going to just write the article like you would, like this. It's going to look just like this. Now, with these elements, the reason that they're here is because we want to turn all of the ideas that we wrote about into notes that we can search for in the future, right? So after you write the draft, let's say that this is the draft, you can come through here and I can be like, oh, okay, how to start persuading, the pyramid principle, that should be a note in and of itself, right? Because that's what the notes are anyways. So what you can do here is you select it, you go here, you go down to atomic note, and then it turns it into an atomic note that you can search, and the title of it is whatever you put here as the pyramid principle. And so the beautiful thing about this is that all you have to do for the minimalist writing workflow is 1, create the document, 2, start writing the document, 3, capture ideas for that specific document as you go about your day or whenever they come to you, because you're probably not going to have them fleshed out inside the actual document. So you can write those all out in Capture while connected to that specific document, and then you write about them. And then once you're finished, you go through, and I turn the first thing into a hook because it's not really a note, it's more of a hook. And then you go through, you turn them all into atomic notes, and you can tag or you can add connections to these so they are actual notes. Now, how are they actual notes? Well, 1, they're nice because they don't clog up anything here. 2, you can link to elements. And what you can do now is if you ever want to find that specific thing, you can go to the search menu. I can type in atomic note, and then search by element, and I can see them all inside of here, right? And then I can either go here and I can open that in a pane. So they're all here and I can find and link to the atomic note. Or if we go back to atomic note, I can search within them for specific things. So if I have a ton of these, then I can just search the 3 pillars of self-confidence and it shows right there, right? And then I can open it and take it as you will. So that's the minimalist writing workflow. If you want to create a second brain with your writing, because you can very easily just go in, create documents, write, and use Cortex for that reason, but you're missing out on so much power and you're missing out on saving searchable notes for later to be able to reference in your future writing, especially if those ideas were very good and you don't want them to get lost. So in a nutshell, that's the minimalist writing workflow. Write a draft, capture ideas to it, turn everything in the draft into notes, because then you have notes, writing, and you don't need all of these notes unless you want to have them in there. Another thing with this is that if you start transferring over all of your past writing into Cortex and turning them into notes, it's going to take some time. Yeah, it sucks, but then you're going to be able to search and filter for those with your new writing. So makes a lot of sense. That's all I have for this one. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to go over, and if you aren't a writer, this will become very apparent to you, or not apparent, but valuable to you, because your writing won't really live in Cortex, but your projects will. In terms of productivity and planning, which is what a lot of people use a second brain for, we've put together just a very simple workflow to go through. So far, we have the Cortex operating manual. We went over that in the product tour. Next is just my writing, so your drafts and your outlines, your notes and ideas with all of your core notes, or just notes in specific. You have your captured ideas, you have your library, you can search for it all, etc., etc. Now, what we have here is a productivity section. Now, you could rename this to like planning or something of that nature, because it could definitely conflict with your notes and ideas if you have a productivity folder. So keep that in mind. But we're going to go into the weekly planning template and just keep this extremely simple, because I'm projecting myself onto Cortex and you all right now and saying that I like extremely simple just ways of generating clarity in the morning, right? I'm not one to go through this huge document of certain things that I need to do. So we have a few things here. We have the weekly planning template. So you're going to duplicate this every single week. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to duplicate and I'm going to drag the normal one above it just so it stays organized. And then I'm going to name this planning September 17th. So 9/17/24, just to keep them organized. And then we'll go through this. So what you do is duplicate an organized element. So it's organized. I could organize these by month as well by just adding like a monthly folder. So it's September. I'm going to add this here, or let's just say 2024. And I'm going to drag the planning for this week inside of there. And then we go into the planning and now fill out the elements accordingly, tags and connections, etc., etc. So here you can just brain dump everything on your mind. So our co-founder, Joey, is the guy to go to when it comes to brain dumps. He used to self-study psychology. He was a performance consultant for a long time. The power of a brain dump is not to be taken lightly in terms of just listing out every single thing on your mind, whether that's a project or a task or stressors or anything, right? List out everything on your mind. And if you want to, you can also connect to this and capture and just brain dump everything. Or if you have an idea that comes to mind or something you want to brain dump for the week and you're out and about on the go on your phone, then you can open Capture and you can connect to the specific document of that week, so planning for that week, and then brain dump the idea. So you can save it for later and you know exactly where it's living. Now, after you brain dump stuff, we go into the weekly review. So this is a very typical and basic one that I think helps a lot. So what went well last week? What didn't go so well? This helps you identify problems that you can overcome and course correct, because that's just how you get better at life. Next, what are you grateful for this week? I like to do weekly gratitude rather than daily, because with daily gratitude, I usually just end up writing the same thing over and over. And I know that that has some power to it, but I like weekly gratitude more. Next thing, listing out this week's goals and what could be better this week. And then for connections, it's listing out the projects that you're working on that week. So you could create your newsletter documents, your YouTube script documents, your meeting notes documents, etc., and organize those accordingly. So this week, let's say I'm working on that one, the greatest skill of the 21st century. So when I'm overviewing my week, or if I want to add every week as a favorite so I can go and look through this and open these when I need to and just start writing right away, I'm good to go, right? The next thing, plan out your notes if you want to take notes. So if you have a book or something that you want to write about, you could create something like notes on the art of impossible. And that's like a book note. And then you could drag and organize that wherever you want. But if you're taking notes for the week, then you can open this, you can add the core notes template inside of here, etc., and it's just good to have. And then you can always link back to this. Now, the next thing is adding your daily planning template. So there's a few ways to go about things like this in Cortex, where I'm gonna delete that. But under this weekly planning template is the daily planning template. So this one's easy to create. So I'll give you this template, the one right here, and you'll be able to download that. But the other daily planning template won't come with it because it's extremely simple. So let's just open that up. And the reason it's nested under this is because you're going to duplicate it every day, right? So you have the daily planning template, or you don't duplicate this every day, you duplicate the weekly one every day, but you're going to change this to the date, or I can just name it daily planning. But the thing with this is when you search for something, you usually want to include some kind of differentiator there. If you're continuing to duplicate the weekly planning, I'm actually in the wrong template. The template is right here, daily planning. Yeah, it's that one. Okay, daily planning. So pretty simple. Name this so that it's distinct enough so you can search for it and find it. The next thing is, this is just a template to organize your days. So duplicate the task template every day, which is this, list out the tasks. And then if you have a more extensive daily planning type deal, then, or have daily notes, then I would recommend creating more elements, and you can nest them within this, or you can nest this element inside of it, or you can just duplicate daily planning templates every single day if you want to create a bigger daily planning template. So if I duplicate this, then they'll all reside under the weekly planning template, and it makes a lot of sense. So here, I just list out the tasks. So this morning I have write for 30 to 60 minutes, work on Cortex tutorials. I know I have a Cortex call at 12, etc., and I come through here, knock these out, and then every day, I actually should have done that at the start, was, let's take these, let's just call this a task, and I duplicate this, and I can drag it outside of it, and then what I have here on the go is just tasks, and I can rename these by the date, so September 17, 2024, and then I can see that date right here, and then you just have a long list of tasks for the specific days of that week going there. And then if I ever need to find the specific task for the week, which isn't too frequent, I can just search tasks, and then I can see the daily planning templates inside of here. And again, if this is a distinct name for this, then it should be relatively easy to find. So that's how I would go about planning in a very simple way here. As stated before in this second brain course, we deeply encourage you to create your own templates and teach us things that we didn't know about Cortex. And if you do, please post it in the public community, or just send it to us privately via email or anything like that, because it really helps us. And it may help you. If you want to be a creator of sorts, you can always take it and create a tutorial about it. And if you want to become an affiliate, then you can. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching so far. See you in the next. Okay, in this video, I want to just tie everything that we've learned together and give you a very big picture overview of Cortex as a whole and expose you to other things that you can do inside of Cortex. So we went over the Cortex operating manual. Here's all of the features that you can use. We created 3 different main folders, which was your writing, so writing newsletters, your notes, so creating core notes by category, and productivity, so creating weekly reviews and templates for every week, and then daily templates within those, while mixing and matching elements to show you the power of those. Now, that's all pretty straightforward and simple. It's up to you on how you keep up with this. But beyond that, I want to show you a few other use cases that I use Cortex for. So I use Cortex, this is my personal database, for everything. And I mean everything, right? So I have my thread drafts for Twitter, where I've written drafts like this. So if you know what a thread is on Twitter, or like a carousel on Instagram, or just a long post, you can get the point of what I'm doing here, where I have a thread, or where I write a bunch of threads in one specific thread drafts document. And then I have the title of it. I have key points that I want to add. I write my hook and I write my posts just like this. And that makes it very simple to organize and transfer over to something else. I also have a connection with my thread writing guidelines. So if I have a checklist or a template that I want to connect to a document by default, so that I can always reference it and include certain tags that would help me find other ideas faster, that's extremely helpful. Now, beside that, I have swipe files. So I have random ideas that I've swiped, an idea queue, external ideas. External ideas is something like this, where I have links to people that I like to follow, and that works pretty well. One thing is how I'm writing my book. So I've had a few outlines for this book, but typically I have something like a brain dump, where I just go crazy with making connections and trying to flesh things out. And then I have my outlines, and that's old. So go to outline, and I have all of my chapters here, and then I write these here, and I can capture ideas specific to this document, and it works fairly well. I add a brain dump element just to keep things organized, so I can write and open this in a pane if I ever want to reference it. So all of that, I pin my weekly newsletters that I'm writing. So this is one that I'm writing this week. This isn't finished yet, but I have a few brain dumps. I flesh out the outline, and then I start writing the letter. I do that every week. I have my past newsletters up here. Certain documents, if I have something that I want to write down and start doing immediately, I just press the plus button and I start writing stuff out, and I can organize or delete these later. But I have a social content folder, my products. So if you're building an information product or an education product or something of that nature, just having all of your knowledge in one database is liberating, to say the least, where I can reference anything that I've ever written ever. I don't need to go to my course platform and open it up and do that and have all of these tabs open. As long as I create everything in Cortex first, then I'm doing incredible, right? And another thing that you'll be able to do in the future is you'll be able to have workspaces. So if you do want to create courses inside of Cortex and have an interconnected learning experience, like imagine a course in Cortex where I can open up tags to see specific documents for those. I can open up things in panes and reference everything at once. I can have highlights. I can capture ideas of my own and take notes. It's a great experience once we actually have workspaces available for creators, right? Another thing that I find quite important, but this can definitely overwhelm people, is once you're ready, you can start creating like meta documents or big connected documents that have all of your best ideas in them. So we teach this in the Writers Bootcamp. So bootcamp.cortex.co, that's a cohort where we go deeper into writing and how to actually get started. But in terms of something like this, for your brand is very important when you're writing about big picture topics, because I have my categories, I have specific processes, and then any ideas that relate to those. I have concepts, process. I have all of these things. And a lot of you have heard about these before because they're what create my brand. They're what people remember me for. So whenever I go to write something, I tend to open this document in a pane, and then I can just search and endlessly come up with all of these different ideas and all of the things that I would normally forget because it's just hard to keep all of these things top of mind, right? So aside from that, I have my books, notes and ideas. Here's all of my categories that I've created. I have a lot of notes just from past newsletters over the years. I like to call where I write content the lab. So I have the queue for specific ideas. In my capture, I save a lot of post ideas with the tag post idea. I also save YouTube video ideas with the tag YT ideas. Whenever I see a good YouTube title, I type that down and put it in capture just so I have all of these things ready to reference all at once. This is the template that I duplicate, and then I organize my writing like this. So I have it all in here, and then I have my outlines, my newsletters, so on and so forth. Cortex, so specific projects that you're working on, you can have specific folders for those. But in general, that's the big picture overview of Cortex. And as I've said a few times now, is I would absolutely love to see how you set your Cortex up. And if you think it's better than what we taught in this course, we'll do something. I don't know. We'll help you in some way, however we can, because we're not dogmatic about where the best information comes from. If it's not from us, then we want to help you spread that information. So please, if you create something good, send it to us. We want to help. Thank you again for going through this course. I truly hope it was impactful. I hope Cortex becomes as addicting to you as it is to me. And I just can't wait to continue developing this little baby of ours. So thank you again for watching. Catch you in the community.